thought he was the man to lead us through the long night, but I was wrong.
Do you like games, little man?
You would spill blood in this holy place.
The gods won't mind. They spill more blood than the rest of us combined.
Who are you?
No one.
A girl has been given a second chance. There will not be a third.
It's all I think about. What was taken from me.
I know what happens.
There's no hiding from this. We have to fight.
Stand at the head of our army where you belong. Show them what Lannisters are. What we do to our enemies.
The real war is between the living and the dead. And make no mistake, the dead are coming.
Dragons do not do well in captivity.
How do you know this?
That's what I do. I drink, and I know things.
Hello again guys, Matt
and Ali here,
and in today's video we are going to look at the epic second trailer for Game of Thrones Season 6. In this video we will be discussing events that happened on the TV show, as well as some book stuff. So a spoiler warning for everything that has happened on the show so far, and in the books.
The TV show canon is becoming further and further apart from that of the books, but that doesn't mean that Dan and Dave aren't going to use storylines from the books. They might just change the storylines ever so slightly, or give them to different characters. Like in Season 5, where Illyria Sand was given a similar storyline to Ariana Martell, who we unfortunately didn't get to see.
And Sansa was given fake Arya, or Jean Poole's role in Winterfell. Okay then, so the trailer opens up with Tommen Giantsbane being a little bit lost. He knew that Jon Snow was the Wildlings' only ally south of the Wall, and probably their best chance of getting to safety. Now that he is gone, the Wildlings might not stand a chance in the Long Night versus the White Walkers. In this scene, he could well be talking about Jon Snow being the Wildlings' biggest hope of survival, or he might only be referring to Mance Rayder, the King Beyond the Wall, who also died last season. Now in the books, Melisandre uses her magic to glamour Mance and keep him alive, but I believe they won't be using this storyline in the TV show.
Fast forward to Meereen with Tyrion Lannister, where the Wise Masters will ask, "Do you like games, little man?" This is referring probably to the Game of Thrones, the constant power struggles for all the characters, and in this case, with Daenerys gone from Meereen, the Wise Masters will probably try and take back some of their power.
So we can expect that Tyrion will be very busy with Varys, Missandei and Grey Worm, just trying to hold power and keep Meereen from more civil war and unrest.
Although a lot of the Sons of the Harpy got torched by Drogon last season, fully expect to see them out there causing havoc. But as we know, with Tyrion being a hand of the king in King's Landing, we think this season we'll truly see his skills as a political mastermind come into play.
Speaking of King's Landing, and the characters here are still going to be dealing with the arc of last season. The Faith Militant have stripped Cersei down and shamed her, but the mission is far from over. Only this season I think the Tyrells and Lannisters will do a lot of fighting back, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Faith Militant was destroyed, at least in King's Landing, by the end of the season. I like how Jaime replies to the High Sparrow when asked if he will spill blood in the Sept. The gods won't mind. They spill more blood than the rest of us combined. It's just such a powerful statement about religion in Game of Thrones, and in real life too.
Game of Thrones make their episodes in such a way that the overall episode has a theme that includes all the characters within it.
One this season could be about the crisis of faith, for example. We could explore the uprising in King's Landing with the Faith Militant, and all the religious upheaval there for part of the episode. then jump to the wall where Melisandre is having her own crisis of faith. She feels her Lord of Light has abandoned her, and feels powerless after her visions in the flames didn't come to pass.
And this trailer is also cut in a way that shows how the story arc follows each other with a lot of the characters and experiencing similar things along the way. We can see this because it cuts to Melisandre, and we know that a lot of blood has been spilt for her red god R'hllor over the seasons. No more so than last season with Stannis' defeat and the burning of poor Shireen Baratheon. Father of the Year award goes to...
Epic shot of Drogon. He is still going to be around, but expect him much later in the series. I think Daenerys will have to grow first as a character and deal with her new problems herself, which is something she hasn't really done since season 1 when she first got the dragons. Who are you? This is of course referring to Arya, who's still in the House of Black and White with the Faceless Men. She cannot fully let go of being Arya Stark though, and that could have major consequences. A girl has been given the second chance. There will not be a third. Because to be a faceless assassin you have to be no one. You can't serve your own interests, but instead the interests of the many-faced god.
It's great how Bran is cut into the sequence too, because he will be learning who he truly is, as well as the powers he can possess as a Green Seer. Expect Bran to become a badass by the end of the season, with some really new and cool powers. And if you enjoy this trailer breakdown review, I would love to do more Game of Thrones videos, perhaps explaining the magic's history and lore behind the series. The Green Seer magic, or just magic in general, could be something we can look at a lot. So leave a comment below if you'd like to learn more.
Cut to Daenerys, and she also has to re-find herself after being taken by the Dothraki. And in an earlier teaser, the Khal says to her, "You are queen of nothing." And she really has found herself in the same position as she was in season 1. Before the cities, the armies and the dragons, and it will be interesting to see how she either escapes the Dothraki or gets them to join her side, which I think will be more likely. Ser Jorah said the Dothraki follow strength above all else. Well, now that she has her dragons and a large army, maybe they will follow her.
If they stay true to the books, which is something the show is doing less and less of in the seasons as they progress, then I think the Dothraki have captured Daenerys. Not to marry her off for sexual means or as a slave, but instead to join the people in Dosh Khaleen. Dosh Khaleen is where there's a group of crones. The crones are made up of former Khaleesi's, whose husbands have died in war or just any old reason. They are the only permanent residents of Vaes Dothrak, the sort of makeshift Dothraki capital as they're constantly on the road. And they are used to foretell the future and read omens. Because after you've been raped mercilessly by a warlord for generations, you do tend to get a bit of the ability to, read into the future and all that shit. I don't know, these guys praise horses. What do you think they were going to be doing?
Daenerys in the trailer is stripped down before a woman, probably one of the Dosh Khaleen. But don't get too excited everyone, because in an interview during season 4 I believe, Emilia Clarke, the actress who plays Daenerys, did say she wasn't going to be doing any more nude scenes. She may have been persuaded to change her mind, but I seriously doubt it. Moving on then with Sansa, I believe she'll be getting the revenge arc of the character the show probably will never do, Lady Stoneheart. And the reason they won't do Lady Stoneheart is probably because it would take away from Sansa's revenge plot, and the howly beep moment when Jon Snow is resurrected, which I fully expect them to be, probably midway through this season. So Sansa will be becoming extremely more badass this season. She will be looking for revenge against anyone who has wronged her, or her family, and that is a lot of people. I love the flashback of the Freys at the Red Wedding, because just like Lady Stoneheart, I think Sansa will target the Freys first. Likely, she will try and rally Stark loyalists from the north, with the help of Ser Davos, who did a similar thing in the books, only instead it was for Stannis. Sansa, with her new backing, will then likely wage war on the Freys in the Riverlands, as well as against the Boltons and Ramsay, who, let's face it, just has to die. This would bring Brienne's storyline to where it needs to be, because last we saw her she was up north outside Winterfell slaying Stannis, and she could then fulfill her oath to Catelyn Stark by protecting Sansa.
Stand at the head of our army where you belong. Jaime finally gets to stop sulking and be a Lannister lord. I know his character arc means he is trying to be more honourable and keep his oath like the one to remain in the King's Guard, and he is still King's Guard despite having a Lannister armour here. But the main reason Jaime wanted to stay the Kingsguard was to be close to Cersei. But with the death of another one of their children, I think Jaime and Cersei will break even further apart from what they have been since Season 4.
Gold will be their crowns and gold their shrouds. Remember the prophecy of Maggie the Frog, where she predicted that Cersei's children would all die before her. 2 down and only Tommen to go. Another part of the same prophecy in the books is that Cersei would be killed by a younger brother, which is another reason why she hates Tyrion so much and wants to see him dead. What is interesting about the prophecy though is that Cersei, although being Jaime's twin, is actually the eldest twin, which technically makes Jaime Cersei's younger brother also. Perhaps the divide between them will eventually lead to Jaime killing Cersei and not Tyrion killing Cersei. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. I don't think that particular storyline will come to pass this season.
Instead, Jaime will be leading the Lannister army to siege Riverrun, the hold of House Tully, who are still holding out against the Freys and Lannisters and still fiercely loyal to the Starks, wanting to revenge them for the Red Wedding. The Tully defense will be led by Brandon Tully, the Black Fish, who managed to escape the Red Wedding after going to, let's say powder his nose.
In the books, Jaime successfully takes Riverrun and brings down the last of the Stark's resistance. But what is more interesting about Jaime being in the Riverlands is the story with Sansa, Brienne and Pod. We may just see the Jaime-Brienne reunion, but with Brienne serving Sansa, not Jaime. We see Pod and Brienne in the trailer with a Tully Sigil in the background, and with Pod we see Lannister tents in the background, so fully expect to see these characters meet up. In the books, Lady Stoneheart captures Brienne and only spares her life if she'll bring her Jaime. Could we see similar things happen, only with Brienne being asked by Sansa to bring a Jaime to be given punishment? Sansa would both test Brienne's loyalty and get revenge against the Lannisters, who she absolutely hates, and for good reason. But that could mean bye-bye Jaime and we would never get to see him confront Cersei. Wouldn't that be a shame?
We see more of that Tower of Joy flashback with who can we expect is Arthur Dayne, the legendary Targaryen Kingsguard, killing this Stark soldier. Sir Arthur Dayne was the most deadly, chivalrous and talented swordsman of the Mad King's Kingsguard, and best friend of Rhaegar Targaryen. And we already know he was at the Tower of Joy from what Ned Stark had told us in the books. So if he wasn't protecting his prince at the Battle of the Trident, then he must have had a good reason to be guarding the Tower of Joy.
We know this is where Ned Stark's sister, Lyanna, was being kept and ended up dying, but perhaps Sir Arthur was protecting a Targaryen prince, because Lyanna wasn't royalty and wouldn't be protected by Kingsguard alone. This speaks to the fan theory of R plus L equals J, where Lyanna dies in childbirth after birthing the legitimate son of Rhaegar, after the two secretly marry. Before passing, however, Lyanna is thought to have made Ned Stark promise not to tell anyone and to look after her son, who would later be called Jon Snow. And this Tower of Joy scene might finally confirm this theory, Jon Snow being a Targaryen prince, and why go to all that trouble if he isn't going to come back?
The trailer continues to escalate, with things turning more and more violent. Who'd have guessed that with Game of Thrones, right? Which will probably be how the series goes too, with each character fighting a battle in their own way. In King's Landing, things will get more and more violent with the Crown facing the Faith. I choose violence, Cersei says in the previous trailer, and I think King's Landing will once again be turned into a bloody war zone. Likewise in the north, where we will likely see a battle for Winterfell nearer the end of the series, and nearer the end of summer, child. It could mean that Sansa Stark loyalists versus the Boltons,
or perhaps a newly resurrected Jon Snow will face off against the Boltons.
And even some wildlings might rally behind the Stark banner, who knows. One other thing people haven't seemed to remember, which was in the books but perhaps not the TV show, was that there's still the Vale. Peter Baelish is ever wily and he's always got a plan, and you just know that he didn't marry Sansa Stark off to them for just a bit of good faith.
But with all this bloodshed going on, it then cuts perfectly to Sir Davos saying, "The real war is between the living and the dead. And make no mistake, the dead are coming." So while the great houses still fight for lands and power, the White Walkers are still marching on the wall, and nobody will be able to stop them when they come, particularly if they are fighting amongst themselves. This has been one of the main themes of the show. It's about a very real threat marching against the living with no resistance, while the living fight amongst themselves. Before finally banding together perhaps by the end of this series, we might finally notice that they are doomed unless they work together to face the others.
The series of books that Game of Thrones is adapted after is called A Song of Ice and Fire, so really the whole story is about the powers being born into the world again. the ice of the White Walkers being pitted against the rebirth of the dragons and fire. So one day we may see these two great powerful magics go toe to toe. And the trailer subtly ties this in, because it then links to Tyrion talking about the dragons. He says, "Dragons don't do well in captivity." And you have to love that line, "That's what I do. I drink and I know things." But this is also a storyline from the books, only with Quentyn Martell, Prince of Doran's son, so the guy in the wheelchair in case you were wondering who that was. He ties in with Dany's hand in marriage, Dany being Daenerys. He ends up getting fried by dragons in the book, but more importantly, he accidentally sets them free in the city to cause chaos. Not intentional, but it's a good wedding gift, right? I know a lot of people who are worried about the end of the trailer because it looks like Tyrion is going to get fried just like Quentyn in the books. I don't think this is the case. I think Tyrion is here for the long run, but I do think he will either accidentally or purposefully set the dragons loose. We'll just have to watch to find out, won't we?
There's a lot more in the trailer, like Ser Jorah's grayscale slowly starting to spread. He will die, his grayscale is pretty much a death sentence, but I don't expect it to be this series, unless it's really late on. Instead, he will keep serving Dany until the very end, probably doing more heroics as he gets closer to his death. Also, the Red Priestess in Essos. She is just a different, likely more powerful, higher ranked version of Melisandre, but from the same faith. We also have the Greyjoys, who are likely to have a Kingsmoot, as we can expect our good friend Balon Greyjoy to take a bit of a tumble. A Kingsmoot will then be called to choose a new king of the Seastone Chair. So fingers crossed we get to see a lot more of Asha, who's called Yara in the show to avoid confusion with Arya. Hopefully we get to see the badass who is Euron Greyjoy, as well as his brother Victarion, who is equally as menacing and utterly amazing in the books too. We know that Euron Greyjoy is definitely going to be in it, and you can see him here, but it isn't clear that Victarion will be in it as well. They might just give his story to Euron to avoid more casting. The Greyjoy storyline mostly involves them choosing a new king, but also involves Euron wanting to take Daenerys as his bride, and Victarion being sent to raid the coastlands belonging to the Tyrells. Could we be seeing another war start up? Sorry once again guys that this video is a tad late, but unfortunately I had major internet problems which have at last been fixed. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let me know if you'd like to see more Game of Thrones videos, be it to discuss and learn about the various lore in A Song of Ice and Fire, or just to discuss the TV show in more detail. We will be doing episode reviews and Easter egg videos when the new season hits, so look out for that. Let us know in the comments what theories you have for the next season. I'll be happy to discuss them with you until Gendry stops rowing. Until next time then guys, this has been Matt and Ali from Livewire, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching guys, we are really looking forward to the new season and can't wait to discuss the epic world of Game of Thrones with you in more detail. We also provide news videos and the latest and upcoming games here on the channel. You can click here to see our video covering the latest For Honor news, or click here to catch up on the Falcon Lost Incursions update in Tom Clancy's The Division.